Let me get this going. And let me pull up the itinerary. All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
Alrighty. Welcome to episode 3, season 2 of Zombie Talk. Today's episode includes Hall of Famer Rick Barry, Zombies GM, and head coach Brian Stasaitis. This past Sunday, December 11th, the Zombies hosted their second open tryout of the year. And Brian, I heard there was a little buzz from the second tryout to the first, or the first tryout to the second. Do you care to elaborate?
Yeah, we had some guys, they were back for the second one, obviously. A couple new guys, they showed up at the first one that were kind of guys that were, just regular guys that had signed up. And then, just it's tough, you see a guy a first time and you need to always see him a second time to see, hey, what can they really do? Was it a fluke? Was it, did they have a good day? Did they have a bad day? Whatever it may have been. So we had those guys returned this weekend. Two of them kind of, stood out where I thought they were, after the first weekend. And then we actually had a few new guys this weekend that were able to be there that came to the tryout. So, overall, I think it was pretty good as far as, still being almost 3 full months out from the season, from first game. So
nice. Random thing that just popped into my head. Do you know who John is? John Garcia?
Yeah, I think I've heard the name.
He went overseas. He played D2 at Dominican, but he played overseas last year, and he was looking to play in a Western Mass team somewhere in the area. And he DM'd me today. I forgot to tell you.
Oh, see, what kind of recruiting you doing, Cam? If you're not giving me guys,
all right. He's like a 6'2", 6'3" guard.
Yeah.
Plays a really good
from
defense.
Springfield, right?
Yeah, he's from Springfield. He won 3 state championships from his sophomore year to 12th grade. And then from there, Massachusetts restructured because they couldn't let Western Mass beat Boston. So now Western Mass is not Division I and everything else. Such a snafu. But
just have them reach out to us on the team page, and I'll connect with them.
All right. So how do you envision the roster filling up?
Like I said, on our last call, we have some guys that are, some returning guys in spots. We're always looking, obviously, to improve in some areas, size, playmaking of guys, guys that can play on the perimeter. So basically, kind of just in all areas, trying to get the right guys that can fit in some holes for us that we have right now, that were either open, last year that I thought we needed to do a better job of filling, going into this year, or that are now open from last year's roster. Due to guys, having other commitments, some guys have new jobs now, so their availability may have changed. So, just trying to restructure the roster the best way we can and get the best guys that can put us in the best position to win.
All right, I like that. So you're acting as you're the GM, you're a little bit of everything with these tryouts. You get a taste of everything. Hey, Rick, I seen today, Bob Myers is up for a re-signing in the Warriors. Do you think he could get re-signed?
I don't see why they wouldn't re-sign him. I mean, he's done a great job for them. They've been, one of the preeminent teams here in this past decade or so. They had multiple championships, could have had a couple more if it weren't for injuries and other crazy things that took place. And they'll be competitive again this year. So I would assume that he's going to get a pretty nice contract. If not, somebody else probably would be more than happy to sign him.
I was thinking there's only a few GMs who are kind of renowned with everybody in the league. I know Masai Mujiri. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. Probably.
Yeah, that's right. He was with Denver, and then he wound up going back east, and I never heard of him before, to be perfectly honest. I mean, so it all comes down to picking the right players, because that's what it's about in team sports. It's getting the right players with the right chemistry. It's not just names. We've seen that. We've seen the debacle that's taken place with certain teams when they try to bring in all these name players, and that hasn't worked, and they've had to trade them away. So it's not always the stars. I mean, you can't have, like I say, you can't have all chiefs in a tribe, right? Mm-hmm. There's got to be some Indians, right? You can't have everybody being the star. And so that's the mix that you need to find. And then finding players that play the game the right way, players who are unselfish, who care more about winning than they do about their own stats. It's a unique thing when you can pull that off. But when you pull it off, as Brian would attest to, I mean, it's a wonderful experience to be a part of something like that. It's one of those things in life that when, like with the Warriors in '75, that it's kind of like watching your child be born. What words are going to adequately describe the emotions that you're overcome with when you watch something of that magnitude? And when you have a chance to be on a team that's the best team in a sport, and you have great chemistry on the team, that's an experience that really words become inadequate to describe just how wonderful that is.
I feel that. I feel that. So, Brian, just if you could elaborate a little more on the tryouts. How's the players feeling? You talking to any guys who are returning?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a kind of our core group. Some of our main guys that have been with the team now for a few seasons have been in tryouts. Like I said, we're looking. We have some new guys, who have come in, who have reached out. Couple more came this past weekend. Like I said, it's still three months out, so trying to get some guys in and starting to get that cohesiveness. Of guys playing together. Trying to develop what roles certain guys might be in. And then obviously, with the constant changing of things, and then try to figure out what role a guy may be in, and then in a month and a half when something changes, then figure out what new role they're in. So just trying to get like the main guys, the core guys, Kevin, Karan, Marcel, Robbie, some of those guys that are those returning guys, back into the mix and get those guys back playing together. So
what's the plan? What's the plan moving forward as far as how many more tryouts are you going to have? When are you going to make a final decision, and how many guys are you going to keep to bring into where you make the final roster?
So we're allowed 16. I'm going to probably try to at least, 14, 15 is usually the number I like to try to be at. I know, the big thing is obviously with the holiday and stuff. And, our first game is scheduled for March 5th. Our schedule just got released earlier this week. So we have a home game March 5th. So we're looking at, hopefully by, end of January, trying to get them in the gym a few more times. So that way we have that whole month of February to get guys, together and be able to play. But, there are some guys that are, in different spots. Some guys are finishing up and over, at a lower level overseas that may look to come back. So there's still some question marks, especially this far out. So, just trying to get everything hopefully done by end of January. So we're ready to go for that full month of February leading up to the season.
And then you go into church and you light a candle and hope that the guys that you really want to have don't get a job and aren't available to play anymore.
Well, and that's it. And there's two guys now that actually, it's funny. A guy I've known for years reached out to me about a player about a week ago, and I've been in contact with the guy, but it's one of those guys. He was overseas, just got hurt. A younger guy, 23 years old, 6'7". And it's like, would love to have him, but obviously, I'm trying to, help him get another opportunity. He had an injury. He was overseas, and he's going to be out like 3 weeks. And as you know, Rick, overseas with the limited number of Americans in certain leagues, and all kind of those international rules. They sent him home to rest up. So just that's always a big question mark. Obviously, I want guys to get the best opportunities, but at the end of and also while having the best team we could put on the floor. So
yeah, well, they didn't send him home to rest up. They sent him home so they wouldn't have to pay him.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they did. They sent him home because they don't want to pay him for not being able to play for 3 weeks or so.
Yeah, it's a crazy world out there. So, especially on this level, I mean, you just don't know, what's going to happen. So I don't envy you at all. So,
Rick, if you were a GM of an NBA team, let's say they say, "Hey, Bob Myers, we're bringing in somebody too," and you to call it, I don't know. Well, it's tough. It's tough to say this because the Warriors are already built. But if you were a GM of a team and you could hand pick your team, do you have some guys in the league that you admire their game?
Well, there's tons of guys who game I admire. But the problem is, salary cap, how much money does a team want to spend? Are they willing to go over the cap like the Warriors did and some of the other teams did? So a lot of factors enter into it, exclusions, the Bird exception. I mean, it gets to the point where you really have to have somebody who specializes in that all the time to give you all the parameters that you have to work within.
Right.
And it's a big unknown. It really truly is. You don't know how it's going to play out. You don't know whether a team is going to give a guy an offer. You might like to get him, but all of a sudden they decide they want to sign him. They're not going to let him become a free agent. And then if a guy is available, and the team has the rights to him for that 1 year to see if they can make a deal before they have to let him go, well, then what do they want for him? What do you have to give up off your roster to do it? It gets very complicated and convoluted. So I don't envy Bob Myers or any general manager having to go through all of that. The biggest thing for me is that I think coaches should be giving way more authority as far as or input as to who the hell they're going to put on their team, because they're the ones that have to coach them, not the general manager, right? And so you have to coach the team that's given to you by the general manager, and then your job's on the line. And if the guy gives you chicken, and they say make chicken salad out of it, that's not the easiest thing in the world to freaking do. And there's very few coaches who have that luxury. Some of them, they have great working relationships between the GM and the coach, and those teams have been relatively successful. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to try to work together. And then, if you're going to fire somebody, why are you firing the coach when it's the general manager who picked all the players?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and a lot of times you look at the one-loss record. Well, the true evaluation is, all right, let's look at this team. Let's see what we have talent-wise. What's a realistic expectation for this team? And the big thing is that how are these players relating to the players? How are they playing every game? Are they coming out and giving a great effort? Are they getting better? Are they committed to playing good defense on a regular basis? Is there improvement coming along? It's not the wins and losses.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But unfortunately, that's what it seems to be all based on. I mean, if a team is improving and he's getting as much out of the talent that he has, or maybe even a little bit more, the coach is doing a really good job. And not necessarily should you fire him, because what the heck is the other guy going to do when he comes in here? He's got the same thing to work with. Mm-hmm. And so that's where the evaluation has to come in. And I think a lot of coaches get shortchanged. I always been of the belief that coaches get too much credit and they also get way too much blame.
Mm.
Yep.
I hear that. Well, so you were talking about the salary cap and how, I don't want to put words in your mouth, because I mean you have this theory that was sort of blowing my mind before our last episode had to be cut short. I figured we could pick it up this time.
Well, it's simple. I've had this thing. This is decades ago. The NBA and every team in major sports, every league, missed the boat. There is no way in the world that somebody playing on a team should have a guaranteed contract regardless of how the team does. I think it should all be predicated on wins and losses. I mean, there could be a ridiculous amount of money that they can get guaranteed, but there should be a maximum number of dollars that any player should be guaranteed on his contract. Mm-hmm. And then other players would get a lesser amount, obviously. But this is where an agent really comes in, to try to negotiate a fair contract for the guaranteed money. And then how much money per game does each player get for a victory? Excuse me, it's still getting over my cold. And that's what it boils down to. So you can have the two worst teams in the league playing the last game of the season, and they're going to play their ass off because every player has money on the line. Because if you win, you get money. If you don't win, you don't get those dollars for that victory. Mm-hmm. That would eliminate a lot of things. It would eliminate the tanking at the end of the season, because players are never going to not worry about who wins and loses. I mean, whether they lose or win, it's all about winning. It's not about, they don't want to lose. They don't want to care about their draft position. Shit, they want their money. So they're going to play hard. Okay. And then the other thing, as I say, is that, the players are going to put an effort forth regardless of the situation. And every game would be like a playoff game. I mean, that's the way it should be. And that's where the teams, I think, really missed out. They'll never get to change it now because the players have so much power in the collective bargaining and what have you. But just think about it. It would be so great. Guys who get hurt, especially star players, You don't think they're going to rehab their butts off? Because if they're not playing and the team is losing games and it's costing them money, that they're not going to want to get back in to play to help the team win, to make the extra money. And it is professional sports, right?
Yeah.
So shouldn't there be money on the line for every game that's being played? As it is now, it's meaningless.
Right.
The wins and losses are meaningless. It's only a matter of where you are and where your position, getting home court or something. It has nothing to do with dollars. Nothing.
Right. The
And it's
players don't have any skin in
sports.
the game themselves, almost.
Oh, well, that's like with the tennis thing. They stopped doing that. I mean, where guys get guaranteed money to go. No, all of a sudden, hey, you go to a tennis tournament, you don't play well, you're knocked out. You don't make money. You base it upon your performance. Same thing when you do it with golf. You know, a golfer doesn't play well, he doesn't make the cut. This is out on making money. What happens in basketball, baseball, hockey, all the other team sports, football? Guys are getting paid regardless of how they play, whether the team wins or loses. Makes no sense.
And they're definitely throwing around some crazy money now. And obviously in the baseball offseason, some of those contracts, it's crazy. But you're right, the NBA and you know, all the professional sports, it really is crazy how much money guys get. And then you see guys that only play, you know, 30 games in a season, or, you know, and then they're sitting out the other 52 games. You know, it is crazy.
Well, the money is insane right now. The lowest paid guy in the NBA, the lowest paid guy in the NBA, guy who hardly ever plays, will make twice as much money as I've ever made in the best year I ever had.
Jeez, that's crazy.
And he never plays.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't understand why they want to give out those kinds of dollars. It makes no sense to me from a business standpoint. There isn't a business in the world that would function with this type of arrangement.
No. Nope.
Yeah, they're just getting so much
then
money
the
from
players,
the
they
TV.
control. Hey, the players, what they have, players are telling them, I'm not going to do that. You know, a guy shooting 50% or something from the free throw line, they should tell him, hey, you need to learn how to shoot underhanded free throws. You don't have a choice. You're my employee. This is what you need to do. And they say, I'm not doing that. Well, then they say, well, shit, then you don't have a job. Take a hike.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hear that. Me and Brian both work in a school, and I know if my principal told me, listen, this is what X, Y, and Z we got to run, and if I'm not doing that, I'm getting a write-up. 3 write-ups, you're out. It's as easy as that.
Yep, absolutely.
What I'm saying, it doesn't function like the real world.
Yeah.
They let things get out of control. And I've said it many times before. God rest his soul, Will Chamberlain, this last book he did, got to know him really well. You know, the inmates are running the asylum.
It's funny you say that. Probably about 12 or 14 years ago, I met an NBA assistant at the time, and we were talking, and it was when Toronto, right before, it's probably actually closer to, probably about 15 years ago. It was right when Toronto, before Bosch and all those, while Bosch was still in Toronto. And he was, you know, this guy was one of the assistants on the bench, and he was saying, you know, it's crazy because and even at that time, he said, you know, you got guys making millions and millions and millions of dollars. He goes, they're not going to, you know, unless you, like you said, unless you have a coach that really can connect with the players and is a guy that can relate to the players. He said, they're not listening to me teach them how to shoot a jump shot. You know, like they want to work on what they want to work on. And that's all that they care about at that point, you know. And then obviously, you know, some of the guys off that team went on to huge contracts, you know, when they left the Raptors. But, you know, I remember him telling me that, and this was within 5 minutes of me meeting him, you know, and me just talking with him and saying, hey, how is it? And he said, you know, it's great, you know, to be there and on that level. He said, but it's not as much coaching as people think, you know, like being in the NBA. He's like, because you have guys that are making millions and millions of dollars, you know, that are basically calling the shots in a lot of these organizations.
Yeah, I'm hearing there's less and less practice than ever in the NBA now, if any, during the season. And Rick, how did you guys practice?
Depends on your coach. I mean,
Okay.
my second year in the league, I mean, hell, we hardly ever had a freaking day off. I mean, we practiced. I mean, it was nuts. And then they had, you know, 2-a-day workouts for extended periods of time, preseason and all. Now, hell, they're playing exhibition games 3-5 days into training camp. They're already playing exhibition games. And it's a totally different world. I mean, you really can't compare it. That's why I wish people would stop comparing players from one era to the other. And how's this guy compared to this guy and this guy here? And I hear all this bullshit all the time. And, you know, you first of all, I mean, there's no such thing as the greatest player of all time in any team sport. It's by position. You know, and I keep hearing the same thing. Oh, LeBron against the Michael. Well, LeBron's basically a 3, even though he can play other positions. He's basically a 3. Michael is a 2. So compare Michael to all the other 2s, compare LeBron to the other 3s. Then you can have some reasonable, intelligent, thing. And then saying, oh, he's the best of all time. Oh, how the hell is anybody better than Wilt Chamberlain? I mean, seriously. I mean, it's so ridiculous that they have these conversations. I get so sick of these freaking talking heads. I wish I can get on a show sometime so I really could go ahead and lay into them and realize how stupid they are.
Yeah, it's true. And
No, it's ridiculous. I mean, I have to listen to this bullshit all the time. I mean, and I'm listening to the games the other day, and I'm watching games and stuff, and I'm seeing stuff happening, and I'm hearing what they're talking about. And sometimes they're talking about freaking shit that has nothing to do with the game. I say, wait a second, talk about the damn game. Who cares about what the hell happened with your alma mater? I mean, talk about the game. You're having a good game. Boston Celtics against the freaking Warriors. I mean, rematch of the finals and everything. And we're talking about Jeff Van Gundy's alma mater. Who the hell cares?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely.
But I kind of get your feelings on the comparison with modern players and older players and stuff. But I do, the more and more I think about it, I've watched a lot of stuff. I've actually went back and watched like a lot of your full games, not just highlights and stuff. I think today you would basically be Luka. I don't know if you're going to be offended by this, but I mean, he's a great player. I think obviously you were one of the greatest players to ever live. And I think you guys' games sort of resemble each other. You guys play at your own pace. I mean, you could go fast, that's for sure. But
well, if I were playing today, I'm telling you, Cameron, I'd play point guard.
That's what I'm saying. You wouldn't play the same position as you would.
I was the point forward. I would want to be the point guard. I would, now what they do stuff, I just have to work on my ball handling skills. It's all you do is you spend hours in the gym doing stuff and you get way better. But it's the feel and seeing the court and stuff. I love doing what I did from my position doing it, but I would want the ball. Why? Because I know that I can control the destiny of my team. Mm-hmm. I know that I can make the right decisions. I can put the ball in the hands of the right guy at the right time because I know the game. Mm-hmm. Okay. And knowing the game and seeing the court and being able to do the things and having the threat of being able to shoot the ball and drive the ball. And I would want to be a point guard without question. I would want to be a point guard. And I would probably be a little different than Luka. Luka's a little bit, bigger and body wise, although he doesn't spend much time in the gym. I can't believe he's as good as he is because he doesn't have a chiseled body. It's not like he's spending tons of time in the gym. At least the Joker, got a little more definition. It looks like he got a little bit smarter doing some stuff. But he's been one of the biggest surprises for me to be as good as he is. When he first came in, when you saw him, you look at his body and, he looked like baby Huey. It's like, does this guy ever work out? I mean, but he can play the hell out of the game. I'll tell you that.
Yep, and he can run for 40 minutes too.
Well, no, he's in great shape. Out. I mean, yeah, he's a special player. There's no question about it.
Definitely. I was listening to another little side note. I was listening to this podcast. It wasn't too positive about you. It's Bill Simmons. It was about his book of basketball.
Oh, Jesus, don't even talk to me about Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons is the biggest jerk ever. I mean, this is a guy that called me a dick in his book. I mean, he doesn't even know me. Doesn't even know me.
And that's what I was.
He was horrible. This guy, thank God they realized how bad he was. They got him off of television because he was horrible as an announcer and a broadcaster. He's horrible. I'm serious. This man owes me an apology. If he ever sees me in person, he should come up to me and apologize to me. How do you call somebody a dick when you don't even know them? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pathetic.
Thought the criticisms.
It's just ridiculous. Bill Simmons, I have zero respect for.
I think the criticisms were highly harsh because they didn't make much sense, because he will praise Kobe with a Mamba mentality, but then the way he described you was that Mamba, basically a Mamba mentality. You had that same thought process and inner drive before it was coined by Kobe, obviously before Kobe even played an NBA game, and you expected, the most out of yourself, and you also wanted your teammates to be equally as invested as you, because you cared about basketball and winning, and you had teammates that weren't exactly as locked in 100% as you were. And it's funny hearing him say it, and then while he's going on about it, he makes it sound negative. And I've never heard someone be so committed, but they get knocked for it.
Yeah, well, that's Bill Simmons has something against me, whatever the hell the reason is. But Bill Simmons, I have zero respect for when it comes to basketball, his knowledge of the game and his unprofessionalism. I mean, that was an insult to me that he would say that about me. He didn't even know me. And he's going by things that people said. I mean, Mike Dunleavy, my teammate, was a good friend and everything. Said, yeah, if Rick was in the UN, he'd probably create World War III. That's because I'm honest about stuff doing it. And he said it to be funny. And Billy Paul said, yeah, half the players in the league don't like Rick, the other half hate him. I mean, you have to understand how it was said. I mean, and yet so many people have an opinion about me as a person, which really hurts my feelings because I know who I am as a person. And it's just like, hey, that's not who I am as a person off the court. When I was on the court, I didn't go out there to make friends with you. I went out there to kick your ass. Okay. Right. I didn't want to be your friend. Okay. I wanted to destroy you as badly as I possibly could. And so if that makes me a bad person, I don't think so. It makes me a pretty damn competitive person, but it doesn't necessarily make me a bad person because I wouldn't do that to you off the court. I mean, if I'm off the court and I see you, falling on the ground, I'm going to go pick you up. I'm going to try to help you out. When you're on the court and doing stuff, hell, I'm going to step over you. I mean, unless the game stopped, I mean, shit, I'm not going to help you. I mean, come on. This is competition. Yeah.
And
this is
and
my
that's
job.
And that's what I'm saying. There weren't people saying those type of things prior to, I guess, just that Mamba mentality that everyone coins. And of course, with Kobe's passing, everyone loves to pay homage. Of course, I'm paying homage to him right now saying it. But yeah, I feel like you get it as you were a jerk because you wanted success, but they're putting other people in other lights. And I feel like you were just a fearless competitor.
But I can tell you one of the reasons that back in when I first came into the league, athletes were never supposed to have any thought process whatsoever. We were supposed to be a bunch of dumb jocks. What the hell do we know? We don't know anything. And I always had an opinion. I would speak up and do things. And that was by something that they didn't want to hear that. Okay. Right. And so things have changed. Now these guys all have opinions. They have opinions that they should keep their mouths shut and not even talk about it because it's basketball. Who cares what the hell they think about worlds, what's going on in the world? I mean, basketball is basketball. Let's keep politics and sports separate, okay? That would be a nice thing to do, okay? We already screwed up a couple of Olympics because of it. So, and that's one of the reasons why, because I was never afraid to voice my opinion about things, and they didn't necessarily like to hear that. And like I say, I feel like Jack Nicholson and A Few Good Men, and I use it on my podcast when I do as one of the segments we have. You can't handle the truth. He's in there with Tom Cruise in the courtroom. And it's really true. People have a very difficult time of dealing with the truth. And now it's a situation where you can, in the past, I can have a conversation about most anything, even politics. And, you have your opinion, I have mine, blah, blah. We get done. Okay, we move on. You go on. If guys, you drink, you have a drink, whatever. Now people get mad at you. If you don't have the same opinion they have, they're mad at you. It's like you're not entitled to have your own opinion. And then people ask questions to me. I give them the truthful answer and they get mad at me. I said, hey, you don't have to get mad at me. You don't have to agree with me, but why do you get mad at me?
All right, so you were part of the era where they were telling you shut up and dribble, basically, is what players are rebelling against now and want to, counter the narrative. But you were part of that first wave of actually being told shut up and dribble.
Yeah, well, that's why this thing now with the social media stuff, you mentioned something to me about it. I mean, social media is good and it's bad. I mean, it's a matter of how you use it. I don't think they use it. If I were playing today, I would destroy social media. I would use it. It's such a great, unbelievable marketing tool. I mean, if you really know what you're doing with social media, I mean, seriously, if I were playing today, not only would I be a better player because of all the training, and we've talked about this before, that I would be a way better player. People say you couldn't play today. I said, no, I'd be way, way better today because we had nothing. I'm talking zero. Zero. No strength coach, no agility coach, no dietitian. We had nothing. Nothing.
So what about in college? Could you preface it more of a college perspective? Because I feel like that's like,
well, college is way beyond college today. Today's colleges are way, but my son Canyon went off to college. My younger son, he went off to college as a way doing stuff. They got him, they get him starting lifting, doing stuff, which we had nothing in college either. So I got to see him a number of months later, got to do it, went up, put my arms around to hug him. I said, oh my God. I mean, he's built up. He's got these huge muscles. I mean, they put 25 pounds on him. He's jumping 40 something inches. I mean, holy smoly. And so that's the beauty of what's going on today as far as the athletes. They have so much at their disposal to help them become better in so many different ways. And so that's the beauty of it. I mean, that's why I'd love to be playing today. That and I have 3 more zeros on my contracts, which would be nice too. But yeah, I mean, it's a different world. It's a totally and completely different world that exists today than back in those days. And also the athletes have such a platform to be able to use social media. I know that I could, and I get paid ridiculous money. If I was 30 years old, I'd be making one of those 50 million 5-year deals for $250 million guaranteed, which again is insane. And I could make more money if I was that popular a player with social media using it the proper way than I would on the court. Yep. No doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah. I know I would buy some berries if you had your own shoe.
No, here's the thing. I would find and promote all of the things that I think make sense, not to just make money, that I really truly believed in, that I know could help people with their life in one way or another, products that I know worked really well, what have you. I mean, like there's a bunch of stuff I'm using right now. I mean, my God, I'm off of Celebrex. I don't have to take Celebrex as a prescription drug for my knee because I'm taking a natural supplement called Biogenesis. And I mean, there's so many things I could be promoting that I use all the time. My Mediceleaf Pro and my Mediceleaf, the CBD products that I use every single day. And so if I had 50, 60, 70 million people who are following me and doing stuff, and I'm out there promoting this, do you know how much kind of money you can generate with that?
Right.
And not only that, do something to be helpful for people, not to just make money.
Yep.
I hear that. I got one last question for you. You talk about the cardio and everything. The weightlifting was different. I seen a picture of
No,
Nate
not different.
Thurman.
It didn't exist.
Well, it didn't exist. How did Nate Thurman look like that? If
because
weightlifting
Nate used to work out.
Exist?
Nate used to work out on his own.
Okay. I seen a picture of him jumping for a rebound, and there were veins coming out of his thighs.
Oh yeah, no, he was cut and do stuff because he lifted and stuff. Even in I see pictures of myself in my first or second year, and I'm cut. I've got definition and stuff. But that wasn't because of doing lifting. I mean, I would just do push-ups and do other things like that. I didn't have a lifting routine. I never ever lifted a weight, did anything until my last year in the pros with the Rockets. It was when Nautilus came into being, and they had the machines, but the team didn't have anything. Mm-hmm. Team had nothing. Nothing. The only thing we ever did at any one time is before our championship year, the Peyton Jordan, I think it was named. Anyway, the guy who was the track coach from Stanford came out and talked to us about stretching. That was it. Showed us something about it's a good idea to do some stretching. That was it. Nothing. Seriously, absolutely nothing. I mean, just think about it. Playing at the highest level possible in one of the major sports in your country, and you have no training whatsoever. You show up at training camp and you go to camp to get into shape. That's what it was. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And the guys were there were smokers. They smoked. They did. I mean, it was, trust me, it is such a different world. It's beyond comprehend. I talk to people for fun, and when I do speeches for corporations, and tell them the difference between when I played and when the guys are playing today, and what they have available to them, what we had available. And they're all laughing. I said, look, I'm not saying this to be funny. I said, I had to live through this. This is the reality of it. This is the way it is. It's so freaking absurd. It's really just pretty amazing. And I'm just thankful that so many of these guys, and you don't hear about it all the time, but a lot of these guys are doing wonderful things. You know, they've got charter schools they're backing, they're behind charities and doing a lot of things to help out those less fortunate. And I have such great respect and admiration for those guys because they have enough money to last, 50 lifetimes, and for them and their family. And so to be using those monies that they're making and to go out and do something meaningful in the community and help those less fortunate, I think is admirable.
It is. It's great. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to this week's Zombie Talk. I appreciate you stopping by, and I'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody. Happy holidays.
Happy
holidays.